Hey man, let's talk about something real. Something you might not even realize is still messing with you. Have you ever felt like there's this voice in your head holding you back, making you doubt yourself, even when you're trying to move on from a breakup or figure out who you really are? I've been there. A couple of years ago, I hit rock bottom after my girlfriend left me. I thought I was over it, but every time I tried to start fresh, whether it was dating again or chasing my dreams, I'd freeze. I'd hear this voice telling me I wasn't good enough, that I'd mess it up, that I didn't deserve better. And you know what I figured out? That voice wasn't just mine. It sounded a lot like my mom. Now, I'm not saying this to point fingers. My mom's not even in my life anymore. She passed away when I was in my teens. But even if your mom's still around, or you haven't talked to her in years, or she's across the country, she's still inside you. Not just in your memories, but in the way you think, the way you feel, the way you move through the world. Carl Jung, this brilliant Swiss psychiatrist, called it the mother complex. It's not about the woman herself. It's about the emotional imprint she left on you, the invisible force that's been shaping your choices, your relationships, even the story you tell yourself about who you are. Jung had this concept called the shadow mother. And it's not the warm, nurturing mom you might picture. It's the psychic baggage, the unmet needs, the silent expectations, the pain that's been passed down through generations. Growing up, I always felt like I had to be the good son for my mom. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs, always stressed, and I could see how hard she tried. But she had this way of making me feel like I had to earn her love, like I had to be perfect, or I'd let her down. I didn't realize it back then, but that pressure stuck with me. Even after she was gone, I kept hearing her voice in my head telling me I wasn't enough. And when my relationship fell apart, that voice got louder, like it was saying, "See, you'll always fail." Jung wrote something that hit me hard. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. Think about that for a second. Your mom's pain, her shame, her unfulfilled dreams, they don't just disappear. They get passed on to you like an emotional inheritance. For me, my mom never got to chase her dreams. She gave up everything to raise me. And I think, deep down, I've been carrying that weight, trying to live up to her sacrifices even when it meant dimming my own light. Maybe you felt something like that too, like you're living as an extension of your mom's story, not your own. Here's the tough truth. You'll never fully heal until you face her. Not the real woman out there, but the mother inside you, the one who's been whispering in your ear all this time. I know that sounds heavy, and honestly, it is. Facing this part of yourself is like stepping into a sacred but terrifying space. It's not about blaming your mom for everything that's gone wrong in your life. It's about being honest with yourself, about grieving the things you never got as a kid, and about finding the courage to let go of the weight you were never meant to carry. So, how do we even start to do that? Let's dig into that next. So, we've talked about how your mom, or at least the emotional imprint she left, lives inside you, shaping the way you see yourself and the world. But what does it actually mean to face that inner mother, and why is it so crucial for healing? When I first heard about this idea from Carl Jung, I'll be honest, I was skeptical. I thought, my mom's gone, and I've moved on. What does she have to do with my heartbreak or my struggles right now? But the more I dug into Jung's work, the more I realized I wasn't as over it as I thought. That voice in my head, the one that kept telling me I wasn't good enough, that I'd never measure up, wasn't just mine. It was hers, or at least the version of her I'd internalized. Jung called this the shadow mother, the part of the mother complex that holds all the unmet needs, the silent expectations, the pain that's been passed down. For me, it was the pressure to be perfect, the guilt I felt every time I tried to put myself first. After my breakup, I kept replaying every fight, every moment I felt like I failed my ex, and that guilt would hit me like a wave. I'd think, if I'd been better, if I'd tried harder, she wouldn't have left. And that's when I realized that wasn't just about my ex. That was the same guilt I felt growing up, trying to make my mom proud, trying to be the son she needed me to be. Jung would say I was living as an echo of my mom's pain, not as my own person. Here's the thing, healing isn't about pointing fingers at your mom and saying, "You messed me up." It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about looking at that inner mother, the emotional imprint, not the woman herself, and being honest about what she's been doing to you. For me, that meant facing some hard truths. I had to admit that I never got the kind of unconditional love I needed as a kid. My mom loved me, but her love came with expectations. She needed me to be her rock, her success story, because she didn't have one of her own. And I had to grieve that. I had to let myself feel the sadness of being a kid who just wanted to be loved for being me, not for what I could do. That grief was tough, man. I remember sitting in my room one night, journaling about it, and I just broke down. I wasn't crying about my breakup anymore. I was crying for the little boy who felt like he had to earn his mom's love every single day. Jung would say, that's the kind of courage it takes to heal, the courage to feel the pain you were never allowed to feel, to honor the inner child who's been carrying that weight all these years. It's not about resentment. It's about setting down the burden you were never meant to carry. This journey isn't easy, and I won't pretend it is. Facing the mother within means stepping into some dark corners of your mind, places you've probably been avoiding your whole life. But Jung believed this is where true freedom comes from, not from running away from the pain, but from walking. Now that we've talked about facing the mother within, let's get into what this shadow mother really is and how she's been holding you back. When I first started exploring Carl Jung's ideas, I thought I knew my mom's influence on me. She was the one who pushed me to be perfect, to always do better. But Jung showed me there's so much more going on under the surface, and it's not just about the woman who raised you. It's about the deeper, universal force that Jung called the mother archetype, and how it gets tangled up with your personal wounds. Jung believed the mother isn't just your mom. She's this timeless, universal image that lives in what he called the collective unconscious. It's like this shared blueprint all humans have, filled with archetypes that show up in our dreams, myths, even the stories we tell. The mother archetype is one of the most powerful ones, and it's got two sides: the nurturing, life-giving side, like the Virgin Mary or Mother Earth, and the devouring, destructive side, like the dark goddesses in mythology who consume their own children. Jung called this the paradox of the Great Mother. She's both the creator and the destroyer, the one who comforts you and the one who can swallow you whole. Here's where it gets real for us guys, especially if you're dealing with heartbreak or trying to figure out who you are. When you grow up with a mom who's carrying her own pain, maybe she was distant, overly critical, or smothering. That archetype gets mixed up with your personal experience. For me, my mom was always working, always stressed, and I felt like I had to be perfect to make her life easier. But underneath that, I also felt like I could never be enough because she was carrying her own wounds. Her own mom was cold and distant, and that pain got passed down to me. Jung would say, this is the mother wound, a kind of emotional DNA that gets handed down through generations, shaping how you see yourself in the world. This wound isn't just personal, it's collective. Jung saw it as a kind of psychological epidemic, where so many of us are disconnected from our roots, from the deeper, feminine energy that the Great Mother represents. And when you don't face it, that shadow mother becomes this inner voice that sabotages you. For me, it showed up every time I tried to move forward. After my breakup, I wanted to start dating again, but I'd hear this voice saying, "You'll just mess it up. You're not good enough for anyone." I'd try to chase my dreams, like starting my own business, but that same voice would whisper, "You'll fail, just like you always do." Jung called this psychological infantilization, where you're a grown man on the outside, but inside you're still a kid, tethered to your mom's expectations, paralyzed by guilt. That guilt is ancient, man. It's like this primal fear of being abandoned, of losing the one person who's supposed to keep you safe. Even now, when I try to set boundaries, like saying no to a family obligation, I feel this pang of guilt, like I'm betraying my mom, even though she's gone. Jung would say that's the shadow mother talking, whispering things like, "You're selfish, you're ungrateful." It's why so many of us stay stuck, sabotaging our own joy, suppressing our truth, collapsing every time we try to stand up. Facing the shadow mother sounds intense, I know, but it's the key to breaking free from the psychic prison she's built around you. When I started this journey, I thought healing meant I had to fix my relationship with my mom, even though she was gone. But Carl Jung showed me it's not about the woman herself, it's about the inner mother, the complex that's been scripting my life, suppressing my instincts, and keeping me stuck. And let me tell you, facing her was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's also what set me free. Jung believed that the shadow mother isn't just a barrier. She's the dragon guarding the gold, the monster you have to face to reclaim your soul. For me, that meant confronting the guilt and shame I'd been carrying since I was a kid. I had to look at how my mom's expectations, her need for me to be perfect, to make her sacrifices worthwhile, had shaped me into someone who was always trying to please others, even at the cost of my own happiness. After my breakup, I realized I'd been doing the same thing with my ex, always trying to be the perfect boyfriend, even when it meant ignoring my own needs. That pattern wasn't just about her, it went all the way back to my mom. The process of facing this shadow mother wasn't pretty. Jung said it often comes with a collapse, depression, emptiness, grief. And he was right. I had nights where I'd sit alone, journaling about all the ways I felt like I'd failed my mom, all the times I wished I could have just been enough for her without trying so hard. I felt this deep sadness, not just for myself, but for her too, for the pain she carried, for the dreams she never got to chase. But through that grief, something shifted. It was like I was dismantling the illusions I'd been living under, the ones that told me I had to earn love, that I wasn't enough just as I am. Jung called this a sacred crumbling, a necessary death before rebirth. What came next was the hardest but most liberating part, separating from the mother complex. Jung saw this as a rite of passage, a symbolic death of the child inside you so the sovereign adult can be born. For me, that meant letting go of the guilt that kept me tethered to my mom's expectations. I had to tell myself I'm allowed to live for me, not for her. I started setting boundaries, saying no to things that didn't feel right, even if it made me feel guilty at first. I also started practicing what Jung called self-parenting, being kind to myself, giving myself the love and care I didn't always get as a kid. I'd write affirmations like, "I'm enough just as I am," and I'd say them out loud even when I didn't fully believe them. This separation isn't about abandoning your mom or cutting her out of your life. It's about stepping into your own power, what Jung called the self, the deep inner guide that knows who you're meant to be. It's like in The Alchemist, when Santiago has to leave behind the familiar to find his treasure. You have to let go of the old script, the one that says you're a failure. We've been on a heavy journey, talking about facing the shadow mother and breaking free from her grip. But what happens if you don't face this mother wound? What happens if you keep ignoring that inner voice, the one that's been holding you back all this time? Carl Jung had some pretty stark warnings about this, and I've seen it play out in my own life, and maybe you have too. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what happens when you don't face the mother complex. It becomes this parasitic force, quietly scripting your life without you even realizing it. For me, it showed up in ways I didn't expect. Before I started this journey, I'd find myself stuck in the same patterns over and over. I'd date women who were emotionally distant, just like my mom was. And I'd bend over backwards trying to win their approval even when it left me feeling empty. I'd sabotage my own dreams, telling myself I wasn't good enough to start that business, that I'd fail anyway. I felt this chronic exhaustion, like I was always running on empty, and I'd second-guess every decision, paralyzed by guilt. Jung called this a kind of inner colonization, where your soul isn't your own. It's governed by the frozen image of your mom. You might think you're free, especially if your mom's not in your life anymore. But that inner mother keeps whispering, "Stay small, stay safe, don't shine too bright." It suppresses your instincts, dims your creative fire, and leaves you feeling like you don't belong to yourself. I've seen this in so many guys I know, friends who can't commit to a relationship because they're terrified of being abandoned, or who stay in dead-end jobs because they're scared to take a risk. Jung would say, this isn't just personal. It's a collective wound passed down through generations, keeping us disconnected from who we're meant to be. The consequences aren't just emotional, they can show up in your body too. Jung noticed that unresolved complexes often manifest as physical symptoms like fatigue, anxiety, even chronic health issues. For me, I'd get these tension headaches every time I tried to stand up for myself, like my body was fighting against me. It's like the body is crying out for healing, begging you to face what's been buried. If you don't, you'll keep living as a shadow of yourself, always reacting to the past instead of creating your future. But here's the hope, man. You don't have to stay stuck. Jung believed that facing the mother wound isn't just about breaking free from the shadow. It's about reclaiming the light, the nurturing side of the mother archetype. For me, that meant learning to parent myself, to give myself the love and support I didn't always get as a kid. I started small, taking myself out for coffee, writing down things I'm proud of, even just letting myself rest without guilt. Over time, I felt this shift, like I was finally becoming the man I was meant to be, not the one my mom needed me to be. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming your true self, fully sovereign and whole. It's not about erasing your past or cutting your mom out of your heart. It's about rewriting the story, choosing to live